Captain Tom Reed squinted at the radar display. Something large drifted among the asteroids ahead. His small ship, the Horizon's Edge, had been mapping this remote sector for weeks with nothing interesting to report. Until now. "What do you make of it, West?" Reed asked his science officer. Alan West adjusted his glasses and leaned closer to his screen. "Unknown object, sir. About 200 meters long. Metal construction. No energy readings." He looked up with excitement in his eyes. "It's artificial, Captain, and it doesn't match any known designs." Reed nodded and turned to his pilot. "Take us closer, Jones. Nice and slow." As the Horizon's Edge moved deeper into the asteroid field, they got their first visual of the object. The crew fell silent as the image appeared on the main screen. It was a ship, but unlike any they had seen before. Where modern vessels were sharp and angular with obvious weapon mounts, this craft was smooth and rounded. Its hull was made of a dull, gray metal with no visible seams. No thrusters, no weapons, no windows. Just a perfect oval shape that somehow seemed both primitive and advanced at the same time. "How old do you think it is?" Reed asked. West shook his head in wonder. "The dust layer suggests thousands of years, at least. But the hull shows no damage. No micrometeorite impacts. Nothing." Jane Miller, the ship's engineer, spoke up from her station. "That's impossible. Nothing sits in an asteroid field that long without taking hits. And yet there it is," Reed said. He made his decision quickly. "Suit up. We're going to take a look." An hour later, Reed, West, and Miller floated outside the ancient vessel in their spacesuits. Up close, the ship was even more mysterious. The hull had a faint pattern etched into it, like circuits or writing, barely visible under the dust of ages. "No obvious entry point," Miller said, running her gloved hand along the smooth surface. As if responding to her touch, a seam appeared in the hull, widening into a doorway. Light spilled out from inside. "It's still powered," West gasped. "After all this time." Reed checked his suit readings. Atmosphere inside. Gravity too. He clicked his comm. "Jones, keep the Horizon's Edge at safe distance. If you don't hear from us in 3 hours, leave and report to Fleet Command." "Understood, Captain," came the reply. "Be careful in there." Reed led the way into the ship. The interior was as smooth and curved as the outside. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the material itself. The air was cool and dry. "It's clean," Miller said in disbelief. "No dust, like it's been waiting for someone." They moved deeper into the ship, finding curved corridors that led to a central chamber. As they entered, lights brightened, and a console rose from the floor in the center of the room. West approached it carefully. Some kind of control center. When his hand hovered over the console, a holographic display appeared above it. Strange symbols flowed across the light display. "A language," West said, his voice filled with excitement. "Nothing like I've ever seen before." The symbols shifted and changed as they watched. West pulled out his tablet and began recording. "It's learning," he said. "I think it's trying to communicate." Miller had moved to what appeared to be an engineering section. "Captain, you need to see this." Reed joined her at a wall panel that had opened to reveal complex machinery. Miller's scanner hovered over it. "These aren't engines, at least not like anything we use," she said. "The technology is. I don't even have words for it. It's like they understood physics in a completely different way." Reed nodded and tapped his comm. "Jones, send a message to Fleet Command. We found an intact alien vessel of unknown origin. Technology far beyond current understanding. Request instructions." The reply came quickly. "Message sent, Captain. Standing by." Reed turned his attention back to West, who was now interacting with the holographic display. The symbols had changed again, now organizing into patterns. "I think I'm getting somewhere," West said. "This interface is adaptive. It's learning from my inputs." He pointed to a repeated symbol. This appears over and over. I think it might be a name. For the ship? Reed asked. West nodded. If I'm right, this vessel is called the Guardian. As if responding to its name, the ship hummed to life around them. More panels opened in the walls, and the holographic display expanded. Captain, Miller called out, her voice tight with excitement. The ship's systems are activating. The hologram shifted again, now showing a star map. A point of light pulsed at its center. That's our location, West said. He pointed to another light. And I think that's Earth. Reed's comm crackled. Captain, receiving response from Fleet Command. Put it through, Reed ordered. Admiral Green's voice filled their helmets. Captain Reed, you are to secure the alien vessel and prepare it for towing. The Dauntless is being dispatched to your location to bring it back to Earth for study. Maintain minimum contact with unknown systems. Understood, sir, Reed replied. But there's something you should know. The ship appears to be operational. Its systems are active. There was a pause before the Admiral responded. Is there any indication of weapons capabilities? Reed looked around at the smooth, curved walls and peaceful blue light. Negative, sir. It doesn't appear to be a warship. Then it's of limited tactical value, the Admiral said, his voice flat. Still, the Science Division will want to study it. Secure it and wait for the Dauntless. The communication ended, and Reed exchanged glances with his team. Limited tactical value, Miller said incredulously. They have no idea what's here. West was still working with the hologram. Captain, I think I've found something. A record or log of some kind. The display showed images of beings unlike any they had seen before. Tall, slender creatures with 4 arms and elongated heads. The Builders, West whispered. More images appeared. Planets, stars, and finally, what looked like a terrible war. Worlds burning. Fleets of angular ships that somehow reminded Reed of the Drek Empire vessels. What happened to them? Reed wondered aloud. The final image showed the smooth oval ship, the Guardian, floating away from a dying world. I think they're gone, West said softly. And they left this ship behind. Unknown to the humans, a small craft washed from the shadow of a distant asteroid. Inside, a Drek scout observed the human discovery with interest. It sent a tight beam transmission to its command ship. Humans have found Forerunner technology. Appears inactive. Not a threat. The reply came swiftly. Continue observation. Do not interfere. Back aboard the Guardian, Reed made his decision. We'll wait for the Dauntless as ordered. But until then, learn everything you can. He looked around at the ancient ship that had survived for thousands of years. Something tells me this discovery is more important than anyone realizes. 3 weeks later, the Guardian floated in Earth's largest orbital shipyard. A team of scientists and military officials moved around it like ants, scanning and probing its hull. Captain Reed stood beside Engineer Miller, watching as Admiral Grant, head of fleet operations, examined the ancient ship with obvious disappointment. This is what had you so excited, Reed? Admiral Grant asked. The tall man ran his hand over the dull metal surface. It looks like something from a museum. With respect, sir, Reed said, appearances can be misleading. The technology inside is unlike anything we've ever seen. Admiral Grant shook his head. Our best engineers have been over it for weeks. No weapons systems, no faster-than-light drive, just some fancy lights and strange metals. He turned to face Reed directly. The Drek Empire is pushing at our borders every day. I need warships, not relics. Miller stepped forward. Sir, if I may. You may not, engineer, the Admiral cut her off. The decision has been made. The ship will be moved to the research division for study, and your team will be reassigned. He checked his watch. Report to my office tomorrow morning for your new orders. Dismissed. As the Admiral walked away, Miller turned to Reed with frustrated eyes. They're not even trying to understand it. I know, Reed said quietly. West has barely scratched the surface of the ship's database. There's so much more to learn. Miller looked back at the Guardian. Those energy readings I found, they don't match anything in our physics models. This ship could revolutionize our understanding of. An alarm blared throughout the station, cutting her off. Red emergency lights flashed as an announcement echoed. All personnel to alert stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, all personnel to alert stations. Reed grabbed the arm of a passing officer. What's happening? The colony on Nexus Prime is under attack. The officer said, his face pale. It's the Drek. They've developed something new, something big. The Situation Room was packed with grim-faced officers. On the main screen, grainy footage showed a massive Drek ship unlike any they had seen before. It was angular and black, bristling with weapons. As they watched, it fired a beam of energy that cut through a human defense station like paper. Admiral Grant stood at the front of the room, his face hard as stone. This footage came from Nexus Prime 3 hours ago. We've had no contact since. We must assume the colony is lost. How many people? Someone asked. 20,000, Grant replied. And Nexus Prime is just the beginning. 2 hours ago, we lost contact with Harmony Station. An hour after that, the mining outpost on Vega 3 went dark. Reed felt sick. 3 human settlements wiped out in a single day. What is that ship? Another officer asked. Intelligence calls it the Iron Tempest, Grant said. A new class of Drek destroyer with planet-killing capabilities. Our standard defenses are useless against it. The room erupted in questions and suggestions. Grant silenced them with a raised hand. We're implementing Emergency Protocol Alpha. All civilian ships are being recalled to Earth and the core worlds. Military vessels are being deployed in defensive formations. His eyes moved across the room. I won't lie to you. We have nothing that can match the Iron Tempest's firepower. We need time to develop countermeasures. Reed felt a tap on his shoulder. West had slipped into the back of the room, his tablet clutched tightly in his hands. Captain, West whispered, I found something. About the Guardian. This isn't the time, Reed started, but West shook his head urgently. It's exactly the time. I've been translating more of the ship's database. The forerunners who built it faced extinction too, at the hands of a race using technology remarkably similar to the Drek. Reed's attention snapped fully to West. Are you certain? West nodded and showed Reed his tablet. The weapons' signatures are almost identical. And there's more. Captain Reed. Admiral Grant's voice cut through their whispered conversation. Since you're already discussing strategy, perhaps you'd like to share with the room. All eyes turned to Reed. He hesitated, then stepped forward. Sir, the ancient ship we discovered might be relevant to our situation. Grant's expression darkened. The museum piece. How exactly would that help us against the most advanced Drek weapon ever created? The ship's database contains information about a similar weapon used thousands of years ago, Reed explained. The Guardian might have been designed specifically to counter such threats. A moment of silence followed before laughter erupted from several officers. Grant didn't join in, but his expression made his thoughts clear. Captain Reed, he said, I appreciate creative thinking, but this is not the time for archaeological theories. We need practical solutions, not ancient history lessons. He turned back to the room at large. Now, as I was saying, Reed returned to West and Miller, who had also slipped into the meeting. He didn't even listen, Miller whispered angrily. Would you? Reed asked. An untested theory about an ancient ship against a proven planet killer. West clutched his tablet tighter. But I found references to defensive systems unlike anything we've conceived. The Guardian wasn't a warship. It was a peacekeeping vessel specifically designed to neutralize weapons of mass destruction. Reed looked between his 2 officers, then made a decision. Meet me at Docking Bay 12 at midnight. Tell no one. The shipyard was dimly lit during night cycle. Reed, West, and Miller moved quietly through the shadows toward where the Guardian was docked. The security was minimal. No one sought any value in the ancient ship worth guarding. "This is court-martial territory," Miller whispered as they approached. "Only if we're caught," Reed replied, "and only if we're wrong." They slipped aboard the Guardian through the same entrance that had opened for them in the asteroid field. Inside, the ship glowed with its soft blue light, seemingly welcoming them back. West moved immediately to the central console. "I've been working on a more direct interface," he said, connecting his tablet to the holographic display. The symbols appeared, flowing faster now, as if the ship recognized him. "Can you access the defensive systems?" Reed asked. West nodded. "I think so, but there's something odd about how they're described. Not like weapons or shields as we understand them." Miller moved to the engineering section. "I've been thinking about those energy readings. They almost seem like—" She stopped, her eyes widening as a panel slid open. "Captain, I think I found something." Reed joined her, staring at what looked like a control chair that hadn't been there during their first visit. "The ship is adapting," Miller said, "changing itself based on our interaction with it." "Or revealing itself," West suggested. "Look at this." The hologram now showed a series of images. Planets being attacked, then the Guardian moving between the attacker and victim. A wave of energy spreading from the ancient ship, neutralizing the attack. "It was designed as a shield," Reed said softly. "Not to fight, but to protect." Miller approached the chair. "I think this is how they controlled it." She hesitated, then sat down. The chair adjusted to her form, and new lights appeared along its arms. "Jane, wait." Reed started, but it was too late. Miller gasped as the chair lit up beneath her. Blue light raced along her arms and her eyes widened. "I can feel it," she whispered. "In my mind. There's someone else here." "Jane?" Reed moved toward her, concerned. Miller's eyes focused again, a look of wonder spreading across her face. "Not someone. Something. The ship has an eye. It calls itself Guide." She looked directly at Reed. "And it says it's been waiting for us." At that moment, alarms blared throughout the shipyard. The emergency channel on Reed's comm crackled to life. "All personnel, battle stations. Direct forces have entered the Sol system. The Iron Tempest has been detected on approach to Earth. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Chaos erupted throughout Earth's orbital shipyard. Officers ran to their posts as emergency lights flashed. Outside the viewports, Earth's defense fleet was already moving into formation. Inside the Guardian, Miller sat frozen in the control chair, her eyes unfocused. "Jane." Reed shook her shoulder. "We need to go." Miller blinked and looked at Reed, but her voice sounded strange, as if two people were speaking at once. "There is no time. The weapon approaches." West moved closer. "Jane, are you all right?" "I am both Jane Miller and Guide," she replied. "A temporary link has formed between us. It is how the Guardian was designed to be operated." Reed studied her face, looking for signs of distress. "Can you break the connection if you want to?" Miller nodded. "Yes, but right now, we need it." She turned to the holographic display, which now showed the approaching Drek fleet. At its center was the massive Iron Tempest. "Earth's defenses will fail," Miller said, her voice grim. The weapon they face was designed using principles similar to those that nearly destroyed the Forerunners. "Can this ship help?" Reed asked. "The Guardian was created for exactly this purpose," Miller replied, "to stand between life and extinction." Reed's comm unit buzzed. Admiral Grant's voice came through, tense and rushed. "All ships prepare for emergency deployment. Civilian evacuation is underway. This is not a drill." Reed looked at his two friends, then made his decision. "How do we launch this ship?" Miller placed her hands on the arms of the control chair. "The Guardian is ready. It has been ready for thousands of years." The ship's blue lights pulsed brighter. Throughout the vessel, systems that had been dormant for millennia came to life. "We'll need clearance to leave the dock," West said. Reed shook his head. In this chaos, no one will notice one more ship heading out. He clicked his comm. Jones, this is Captain Reed. Meet us at Docking Bay 12 now. Don't tell anyone. 10 minutes later, Pilot Jones rushed aboard, his face pale. Captain, what's happening? The whole fleet is mobilizing. We're taking this ship out, Reed told him. I need you at the helm. Jones stared around at the alien interior. Sir, I don't even know how to fly this thing. Neither do we, Reed admitted. But Miller has a connection to the ship's eye. It knows what to do. From the control chair, Miller spoke. Guide will assist with navigation. The pilot need only provide direction. Jones looked uncertain, but moved to a console that lit up as he approached. A simplified control interface appeared. Captain, West called from another station. I've accessed the external cameras. You need to see this. On the holographic display, they could see the shipyard in pandemonium. Ships were launching in all directions. Beyond them, the first flashes of battle lit up the darkness of space. Earth's defense fleet was engaging the outer ships of the Drek Armada. We need to go now, Reed said. Jones, get us out of here. Jones placed his hands on the controls. The Guardian hummed to life, its engines activating with barely a vibration. Smoothly, the ancient ship slid out of its dock and into space. As they cleared the shipyard, Miller gasped. The ship is changing. It was true. The dull metal of the Guardian's hull was beginning to glow. The faint patterns they had noticed before were now shining with blue light. The ship's rounded form seemed to shift slightly, becoming more streamlined. It's adapting, West said in wonder. Preparing for its purpose. On the display, they could see the battle unfolding. Earth's ships were fighting bravely, but the Drek forces were overwhelming. And still, the Iron Tempest hadn't engaged. It hung back, protected by its escort fleet, waiting for the moment to unleash its planet-killer weapon. Reed's comm crackled. Unidentified vessel, this is Fleet Command. You are not authorized for departure. Return to dock immediately. Reed hesitated, then responded. Fleet Command, this is Captain Tom Reed aboard the Guardian. We are moving to intercept the Iron Tempest. There was a pause before Admiral Grant's voice came through. Reed, have you lost your mind? Return to dock now. That's an order. I'm sorry, sir, Reed replied. But this ship may be Earth's only hope. That ancient relic. Grant's voice was incredulous. Reed, you're throwing away your lives for nothing. Reed turned off his comm. Jones, take us straight for the Iron Tempest. The pilot swallowed hard but nodded. Aye, Captain. The Guardian accelerated, moving faster than Reed had thought possible. They passed by Earth's struggling defenders, drawing curious looks from both sides of the battle. No one's firing at us, West noticed. They don't see us as a threat. Or a target, Reed added. Miller spoke from the control chair, her voice now more guide than Jane. The Guardian was not designed to be noticed until the moment of necessity. Its purpose is to protect, not to intimidate. As they drew closer to the heart of the Drek fleet, Jones looked back at Reed. Sir, what exactly is our plan? Reed looked to Miller. Guide, what is the Guardian capable of? Miller closed her eyes. When she opened them, they glowed slightly blue. The Guardian does not destroy. It neutralizes. It was built using principles that the Forerunners discovered only as their civilization was ending, the conversion of destructive energy into harmless forms. What does that mean in practical terms? West asked. It means, Miller said, that the Guardian can stop the Iron Tempest's weapon. But to do so, it must be directly in its path. Reeve understood. We need to get between the Iron Tempest and Earth. Yes, Miller confirmed. When the weapon fires, the Guardian will activate its true purpose. Jones set course through the chaotic battle. Ships exploded around them, but the Guardian moved with impossible grace, avoiding debris and energy blasts. As they approached the center of the Drek formation, the Guardian's transformation became more pronounced. The blue patterns on its hull now formed complex, flowing designs. The ship itself seemed to be growing larger, its form expanding. "We're being scanned," West reported. "The Drek have noticed us." On their display, they could see the Iron Tempest turning toward them. The massive black ship dwarfed the Guardian, its weapons ports opening like hungry mouths. "They're targeting us," West said, his voice tight. Reed moved beside Miller's chair. "Is the Guardian ready?" Miller nodded, her eyes still glowing blue. "It has waited thousands of years for this moment. To fulfill its purpose, the Iron Tempest fired. A beam of terrible energy lanced out, heading straight for the Guardian. Reed and the others braced themselves, but Miller remained calm in the control chair. "Now," she whispered, "awaken." The Guardian erupted with light. The beam from the Iron Tempest struck it and disappeared. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Guardian began to change. Its form expanded further, the blue patterns growing brighter, until they outshone the stars. From the control chair, Miller spoke with the voice of guide. "The ancient ship, feared by none, shall stand against the storm of iron." The Guardian's true awakening had begun. General Cragg stood on the command deck of the Iron Tempest, his gray-scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights. The massive Drek commander watched with cold yellow eyes as the strange small ship approached. "What is that?" he demanded. The weapons officer looked up from his console. "Unknown vessel, General. Old design. No match for the Iron Tempest." Cragg grunted. "Humans are desperate if they're sending antiques against us." He studied the odd blue glow surrounding the small ship. "Still something about it seems unusual. Scan it again." The science officer worked his station. "Sir, energy readings are confusing. The ship appears to be changing somehow." "Changing?" Cragg moved closer to the main view screen. "Explain." "I cannot, sir. It's unlike anything in our database." Cragg snorted. "It doesn't matter. Nothing can stand against the Iron Tempest. Prepare the main weapon. Target that ship, then Earth." "Yes, General." Aboard the Guardian, Reed and his crew watched in awe as the ancient ship transformed around them. The walls had become transparent, giving them a perfect view of space in all directions. The blue patterns now flowed like rivers of light across the ship's expanding form. "What's happening to us?" Jones asked, his hands hovering uncertainly over his controls. Miller spoke from the control chair, her voice eerily calm. "The Guardian is entering its defensive configuration. For thousands of years, it has waited in dormant form. Now it awakens fully." On their view screen, they could see the Iron Tempest growing larger. The massive Drek flagship was easily 20 times the size of the Guardian, even in its expanded state. "They're charging weapons," West reported, reading the alien displays that now floated around him. "Energy levels rising." Reed moved to Miller's side. "Jane, are you still with us?" Miller turned to look at him. Her eyes glowed blue, but he could still see his engineer behind them. "I am here, Captain. Guide and I are working together now. The connection is beautiful." She reached out and touched his hand. "Don't worry. The Guardian knows what to do." "Sir," West called, "the Iron Tempest has locked weapons on us." Reed straightened his shoulders. "Everyone brace for impact. This is what we came for." The Iron Tempest fired again. A beam of destructive energy, bright enough to blind, shot directly at the Guardian. But instead of destroying them, something miraculous happened. As the beam struck the Guardian, it seemed to bend around the ancient ship. Rivers of energy flowed along those blue patterns, swirling and dancing across the hull. "The Guardian is absorbing the attack," Miller explained, her voice filled with wonder. "Converting its energy." On the view screen, they could see confusion on the Drek flagship. The Iron Tempest fired again, a longer, more powerful blast. Again, the Guardian absorbed it, the blue patterns glowing brighter. "It's working," West exclaimed. Reed wasn't so sure. They'll just keep firing until they overwhelm us. Miller shook her head. No. The Guardian was designed to handle weapons far more powerful than this. Each attack only makes it stronger. On the Iron Tempest, General Cragg slammed his fist against the armrest of his command chair. Impossible, he roared. Nothing can resist the planet killer. Sir, our weapon is having no effect, the weapons officer reported. The energy is being absorbed somehow. Cragg rose to his full height, towering over his officers. Increase power to maximum. I want that ship destroyed. But sir, we've never fired at full power. The system might. Do it, Cragg interrupted. Now. Aboard the Guardian, the crew watched as the Iron Tempest's weapon ports began to glow with blinding intensity. They're increasing power, West warned. Beyond safe levels, judging by those readings. Miller nodded. They are desperate. This is good. The Guardian can use their own energy against them. How? Reed asked. Watch, Miller said simply. The Iron Tempest fired. This time, the beam was twice as powerful as before, bright enough to outshine the sun. It struck the Guardian head-on. For a moment, Reed thought they had miscalculated. The Guardian shuddered. The blue patterns flared almost white. Miller gasped in the control chair, her back arching. Jane. Reed moved to help her, but she held up a hand. It's all right, she said through gritted teeth. This is part of the process. The Guardian's form expanded further, the blue light spreading outward like wings. Then, with a pulse that rippled through space itself, the Guardian released the energy it had absorbed. But it didn't fire back at the Iron Tempest. Instead, a wave of blue light spread in all directions, washing over the Drek flagship and its escort ships. Where the wave touched, weapon systems went dark. Engines failed. The Iron Tempest hung in space, suddenly powerless. What did we just do? Jones asked in amazement. Miller smiled, the glow in her eyes dimming slightly. The Guardian doesn't destroy. It neutralizes. It converts offensive energy into a dampening field that disables weapon systems. We've stopped them, Reed said, hardly believing it. West studied his displays. Not all systems are down. They still have life support, communications, some engines, just no weapons. General Cragg stared in disbelief as his mighty flagship went dark around him. Emergency lights came on, casting red shadows across the command deck. What happened? He demanded. Status report. All weapons offline, the weapons officer reported, his voice shaking. Engines at minimal power. Shields down. Impossible. Cragg roared. He turned to the communications officer. Order all escort ships to destroy that vessel. The officer worked his console frantically. Sir, no response from the escort ships. It appears they'd been affected as well. Cragg's yellow eyes narrowed. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. If we cannot destroy Earth with our weapons, we will destroy it another way. He turned to the navigation officer. Set course directly for Earth. Full ramming speed. The officer hesitated. Sir? Do it, Cragg shouted. If we are to fall, we will take their world with us. The Iron Tempest's remaining engines fired up. The massive ship began to move, slowly at first, then gathering speed, heading straight for Earth. They're on the move, West reported, and they're heading directly for Earth. Reed understood immediately. They're going to ram the planet. A ship that size hitting at speed would cause an extinction-level event. Miller finished for him. Her eyes glowed brighter as she communicated with Guide. The Guardian anticipated this. It has one final defense. The ancient ship moved again, positioning itself directly in the Iron Tempest's path. The blue patterns shifted, forming new configurations. What is it doing now? Reed asked. Converting kinetic energy, Miller replied. The same principles that allow it to absorb weapon fire can be used against physical momentum. On the view screen, they could see the Iron Tempest growing larger by the second, bearing down on them like a mountain of metal. Will it work on something that size? West asked, unable to hide the fear in his voice. Miller didn't answer immediately. When she spoke, it was with both her voice and guides. We are about to find out. The iron tempest filled their view, moments from collision. Reed held his breath. Then, at the last possible instant, the Guardian blazed with light so bright that the crew had to shield their eyes. When they could see again, a miraculous sight greeted them. The iron tempest had stopped. It hung in space, barely 100 meters from the Guardian, completely motionless. Around both ships, space itself seemed to ripple with colored light, like the most beautiful aurora ever seen. It worked, Miller whispered. The Guardian converted all their kinetic energy into harmless light. The Iron Tempest, the mighty planet killer, the terror of human space, hung defeated before them. The ancient ship that no one had feared had accomplished the impossible. Earth was saved. 1 month after the battle, Captain Tom Reed stood at attention in the Grand Hall of Earth's Central Command. Beside him stood Engineer Jane Miller and Science Officer Alan West. They wore their dress uniforms, freshly pressed for the occasion. Admiral Grant approached the podium, his face solemn. The room fell silent. Captain Tom Reed, Engineer Jane Miller, and Science Officer Alan West, the Admiral began formally. You stand before this council, accused of disobeying direct orders, unauthorized use of military property, and reckless endangerment. Reed kept his eyes forward, his expression neutral. They had expected this. These are serious charges, Admiral Grant continued. In ordinary times, they would result in court-martial and dishonorable discharge. He paused, looking at each of them in turn. However, these are not ordinary times. A small smile broke through the Admiral's stern facade. Your actions, while against regulations, saved Earth and possibly all of humanity. Therefore, this council has decided to dismiss all charges. The room erupted in applause. Grant raised his hand for silence. Furthermore, it is my honor to present each of you with the Star of Valor, our highest military decoration. He stepped forward, pinning the medals to their uniforms one by one. When he reached Reed, he spoke quietly. I was wrong about that ship, Captain. We all were. Reed nodded. Thank you, sir. After the ceremony, Reed, Miller, and West stood on an observation deck overlooking the shipyard. Below them, the Guardian floated serenely, its blue patterns glowing softly. Around it swarmed research vessels and science teams, all studying the ancient ship that had saved Earth. What will happen to it now? West asked. The science division wants to take it apart, study its technology, Reed said. Miller shook her head. They can't. The Guardian won't allow it. Since the battle, Miller's connection with Guide had weakened, but not disappeared entirely. Occasionally, her eyes still flickered with blue light when she spoke of the ship. What do you mean it won't allow it? Reed asked. The Guardian has a purpose, Miller explained. Protecting life. That purpose isn't finished just because the Iron Tempest is defeated. West nodded thoughtfully. I've been studying the data we gathered during the battle. The technology is beyond anything we could have imagined. The forerunners who built it had a completely different understanding of energy and matter. Not different, Miller corrected. Just more advanced. They learned too late that destruction leads only to more destruction. The Guardian was their final gift to the future, a way to break the cycle. A young officer approached them. Captain Reed. The Council requests your presence. The Drek ambassador has arrived for negotiations. The meeting room was tense. On one side sat Earth's military leaders and politicians. On the other sat a delegation of Drek, including General Cragg himself. The massive alien commander looked diminished somehow, his proud bearing replaced with grudging respect. Reed, Miller, and West were seated near Admiral Grant. Before them on the table lay the terms of surrender. A human diplomat was speaking. The terms are generous, General Cragg. Your ships will be allowed to return to Drek space unharmed. In exchange, the Drek Empire will withdraw from all human colonies and establish a demilitarized zone between our territories. Craig's yellow eyes narrowed. And what guarantees do we have that you won't use your new weapon against us once we are vulnerable? The Guardian is not a weapon, Miller said before anyone could stop her. All eyes turned to her. Then what is it? Craig demanded. Miller's eyes flickered blue for a moment. It is a protector. A shield, not a sword. It was built by the Forerunners, the same race your ancestors nearly destroyed thousands of years ago. Craig's scaled skin paled. That is ancient history. A myth. No. West joined in, activating a holographic display. It's fact. We've translated enough of the Guardian's database to confirm it. Your people's weapons technology is based on corrupted Forerunner science. You understood the principles of destruction, but not the balance the Forerunners eventually discovered. The hologram showed images of an ancient war. Tall, elegant beings facing extinction at the hands of ancestors of the Drek. Then, the creation of the Guardian, and its departure from a dying world. The Forerunners could have built a weapon to destroy your ancestors, Reed explained. Instead, they built the Guardian to protect future civilizations. They chose peace as their final act. The room was silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Craig spoke, his voice unusually quiet. We have always believed that strength comes from power over others, from the ability to destroy. He looked at the images of the Forerunners. Perhaps we were wrong. 3 months later, Reed stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Peacekeeper. Through the view screen, he could see the Guardian floating nearby, its blue patterns pulsing gently. Miller stood beside him, now officially the liaison to Guide and the Guardian. Are you sure about this? Reed asked her. Miller nodded. The Guardian has made its decision. It won't be a weapon for humanity alone. It will serve its original purpose, protecting all sentient life from extinction-level threats. And Guide wants you to go with it. Not just me, Miller smiled. Us. You, me, West, Jones. The Guardian has chosen us as its crew. Guide says we proved ourselves worthy when we risked everything to save others. Reed looked around at his bridge, at the faces of his crew. Where will we go? Everywhere, Miller replied, her eyes glowing blue. The Guardian's database contains star maps of thousands of worlds. Some may still have life. Some may be facing threats similar to what we faced. Guide believes this is what the Forerunners intended. For the Guardian to travel where needed, protecting life in all its forms. Reed considered this for a long moment. Not exactly what I expected when we found an old ship in an asteroid field. Miller laughed. The ancient ship no one feared. Until it stopped the unstoppable. On the view screen, the Guardian's patterns brightened, as if in agreement. Around them, a diplomatic fleet assembled. Ships from Earth, from the Drek Empire, and from other races who had heard of the Guardian's power and came seeking knowledge rather than conquest. Ready to make history, Captain? West asked, joining them on the bridge. Reed smiled and gave the order he never thought he'd give. Take us out, Mr. Jones. The Guardian will lead the way. As the Peacekeeper moved into formation beside the Guardian, the ancient ship's patterns flared brilliantly. Then, with a pulse of blue light that rippled across space itself, both ships vanished into the depths of the universe, carrying with them the Forerunner's final message, that true strength lies not in destruction, but in protection. The Guardian, the ancient ship that no one had feared, had found its new purpose and its new crew. Together, they would continue the mission that had begun thousands of years ago, standing between life and extinction, wherever they were needed most. And somewhere, in whatever realm the Forerunners now existed, they watched and were pleased. Their final gift to the universe had found worthy guardians at last.